So this week's question comes from Billy Joe, who asks, have you got any tips on football accumulator bets? Are threefolds better on bigger bets, or would you prefer to do a tenfold on smaller money? So thank you for the question there, Billy Joe. I think this is one that's relevant to a lot of people, a wider audience out there. So in this video, I'm going to do my best to provide as much value as possible, share some stuff on screen with you about football accumulators, or even any accumulators on any sport, the truth behind them, and my perspective as a pro of 10 years on the betting exchanges. I think it will surprise some of you, to be quite honest. I'll also explain how I'd approach accumulator betting with all the things that I know, showing you some mathematical stuff on screen. But before I do, please, if I can just ask you to tap the like button down below, providing you find this video useful, of course, by the end, as it incentivizes us to create more quality content. Thank you. Okay, so way back when, before I got involved in the sports markets professionally, I used to have a little accumulator too. But that was before I understood what I'm about to show you on screen now. So I'm going to explain in simplistic terms the problem with placing accumulators. So I'm going to use Betfair as the example. We're going to use both the sportsbook and the exchange within this example, but it's really quite clear when it's laid out like this. So when you place an accumulator bet, obviously that means to place a bet on several different outcomes simultaneously, one after the other, in order to receive a larger return than you would with a standard bet, because the odds are far bigger. So in our example here, if we take football matches, Premier League, and we go with, let's just go with all the draw outcomes for simplicity. So we'll go Leicester Liverpool draw, Crystal Palace Burnley, Man City Tottenham, and we'll do Brighton Villa as well. So that populates all our selections on the bet slip over on the right, and we've got the fourfold down the bottom here, which is obviously the accumulator. For argument's sake, I'm going to put in £10 there. So you say for these four results in an accumulator, the total return is £1,905, which is inclusive of our £10 stake also, so we can take that off the total if you like. So that might not seem too bad on the initial outset, placing an accumulator. We're in fractional odds here, which can be a little bit confusing and a little bit harder for the human brain to process instantly when looking at it. So we're going to go down to the bottom and select decimal odds. Don't know if you know that's possible on the sportsbook there. And that's going to put the bet slips in decimal format. Now it's no different. You can see that the result is still £1,905.75. So when you place in lots of different outcomes on an accumulator like this, it's actually amplifying the sportsbook's margin into that. Now, if we were to take a direct comparison, which I'm going to do on screen now, between the exchange for those outcomes, you'd get a very different result. So very quickly, we need a calculator to calculate this, because you can't place an accumulator or a multiple on Betfair's exchange. So we'll select the Betfair tab. We'll get those same matches. Leicester Liverpool, draw is 3.75, Palace, Burnley's 3.25, Man City Tottenham 6, and Villa Brighton is 3.55. Now if I bring the calculator onto the screen, I'm going to times all of those odds by each other to give the overall accumulator's odds. So 3.75 times by 3.25 times by 6 times by 3.55. Very simple. This gives us the overall accumulator's odds. So if I times that by the £10 stake, you'll see that we would be returned a total of £2,595 on the exchange odds. So when we compare that to the sportsbook odds, that's a pretty big difference, 1,900 quid or 2,595, okay? And that's because on the sportsbook odds, there's the margin factored into the pricing. All very simple, but I don't think a lot of people that play accumulators regularly realise this is what's going on, and this is why sportsbooks like accumulators so much. This is also why affiliates like placing accumulators, and you'll see a lot of them on social media so much, because there's a huge margin factored into the pricing, which obviously means profit for them coming out of your pocket. Now unfortunately this is just the truth. When sort of researching for this video, I went over onto Twitter to find a couple of examples of affiliates who push accumulators regularly, namely in particular the handle Footy Accumes, and I've seen that they'd blocked me on Twitter, and I actually have No idea why I'm blocked by that, other than the fact that I talk the truth about these kind of instances online occasionally. So I think in a nutshell, that just reinforces everything I'm trying to say here. So accumulators can be a little bit like they're more of a gamble than anything else. Now, the more selections you have on your accumulator, the more the problem, if you like, or the margin is multiplied against you. So in answer to your original question there, it would be better to have less selections if you are going to do an accumulator, because your payout is far closer to the true probability of it actually happening. Although you should still remember that that margin is factored in there also. However, it's not all doom and gloom, because if you're able to find betting odds that are actually larger than their probability of happening, you can multiply your accumulator potential profit in the alternate direction. So we've got a good video on the channel about that and about betting strategy, which we'll put here. We'll put a link in the description down below. I'd highly advise checking that out after this video. So how would I approach placing an accumulator, as you're asking the question there, if I was to do so? And then first of all, because of the reasons I've just explained there, I think it's quite unlikely that I would ever do that. I don't see the reason that I would be interested in doing that. Finding odds that are greater than their true value is hard enough, let alone to find several outcomes where that is the case. Now, the exchange would also be my go-to for placing that bet, and I would place each leg individually, one after the other, at the exchange odds, so I got those bigger prices instead of placing it with a sportsbook. Yes, I know it's a convenience thing. That's what they're preying on there. That's how they make more and more money from the end user being yourself. So just be highly aware of that if you're looking to place a football accumulator in the coming weeks. Aside from that, if I was placing an accumulator on the exchange leg by leg there, I think what I would probably do is use something like a match betting calculator or something like that, Profit Rush or any other site, to calculate the outcomes and the potential of laying it off, so we can kind of like hedge and create some insurance inside our bet as it unfolds. All of this, of course, makes it more complicated, takes up more of your time, and is a little bit more in depth. Given all the time that's factored into it, the effort and the complexity, in relation to the likely returns, I think, to be quite honest with you, that is the open, truthful reason why you wouldn't really catch me placing accumulator bets, and I have no interest in them. There's far easier ways for me to earn money from betting online. So that rounds up football accumulator betting. If you found it useful, please don't forget to tap that like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and leave a question of your own for following week's Q&A.